No, that's wrong. Dixie Diamonds 278. Mets 1:25 a.m. Dixie, Australia 10:25 a.m. Richard Kelbaugh nodded to Riri Burchett, Peter Norton, and Ada Lovelace before sweeping his hand back towards Brentsy's ground control command center. The troop followed Ada as she led the way to the workstation where Trevor Percy waited. Upon their arrival, Trevor stood and looked at his comrades with a furrowed brow that asked if they were going to proceed, and if so, how. "Thank you for your patience, Percy," Kelbaugh said. "Mr. Burchett, Mr. Norton, and Mr. Brentsy are agreed that we should view the video of the Revendue's escape from its cage. Brent," he continued, looking at Ada, "would you do the honors?" Ada sat at the terminal, looked over both shoulders to ensure everyone was in position, then typed, "Jane, play the video." "Right away, my darling," the computer replied, simultaneous to the still picture of a flattened Balloony trying to squeeze his 15.02 millimeter self through the 14.8 millimeter gap at the bottom of his cage, transformed to one of minuscule motion with sound but no vocalizations. Balloony shapeshifted such that his mass filled the bottom of the cage as he flattened his anterior so it was shorter than the gap between the cage door and the cage floor, as he quickly passed the leading edge of his mass beneath the door smoothly and quickly. But when the 15 millimeter cube that was this tracking device hit the bottom of the locked door, Z came to an abrupt halt in his advance towards freedom. Elongating himself so his tail end was pushed against the back wall of the cage opposite the door, he extended most of his volume outside of the cage and tried to fly beneath with enough speed to move the cage door when the cube hit and Z was stopped violently and abruptly. Shape-shifting so he had a dozen pairs of tiny arms, he walked his hands slowly up the outer side of the cage's gate and climbed upward until the cube was once again lodged against the bottom of the locked gate and the cage's floor. Pulling himself upward with all his might, the cube tilted such that it presented an even taller obstacle to pull through the gap, as the cube was just taller than 21 millimeters when presented at its diagonal. Balloony pulled with all his might, but the searing agony caused Zod to stop his effort and consider other possible means of achieving freedom. Uncertain of the sheer strength of the membrane that allows Zod to exist, Z threw caution to the wind and mustered the resources that Z had. Stretching Zod to fuller length with a minimal amount of width such that Z looked like a multi-armed snake with a cube at its end, Z climbed up to the top of the gate with most of his body outside the cage while the cube lay against the wall opposite of his only egress. Placing Zod so he could use maximum acceleration as Z brought the cube smashing into the gap between the floor of the cage and the bottom of the gate, Z propelled Zod outward so the cube hit at a high rate of speed while striking the gate with the smallest possible surface area. The higher speed combined with a smaller surface area allowed Balloony to break out of his cage at a price of searing agony that caused Zod to telepathically scream harshly enough to appeal a Trade de Rosier, even in his unconscious state, that something incredibly strange was occurring, but he had no concept of who his savior was, nor what price said savior was paying in personal agony. With Balloony free of his confinement, Z flew at maximum speed out of the laboratory and headed pell-mell to the den where Brent Cartsey had left the better man for dead.